So I want to talk about body composition. This is probably 80% of what I do every single day if I have the opportunity, because I think it's so important. So how does body composition change after breast cancer? So I really want to talk about BMI first. I have a very love-hate relationship with BMI. I'm 5'2". My general weight is around 135 pounds, which quite frankly means that I'm in the overweight category of BMI. So number one, I want you guys to take BMI and throw it out the window. It's a measure, but as you can see on the right, every single one of these people weigh the same, and you can see the differences in their BMI. So I'm the little gal on the left, that's the blondie. That would definitely be me. I'm just a little taller than 4'9". So why is it that weight loss and weight maintenance is so difficult for us to sustain after breast cancer? The number one reason goes back to my continued repetitive statement tonight, which is loss of lean muscle. Because guess what? The muscle that you have on your body is active, okay? It's metabolically active as you're sitting here. It's metabolically active as you're cooking, you're working, even you're sleeping, okay? So the more muscle that you have, the more metabolism you have. This is why men can skip a brownie for like a day or two and lose 3 pounds, and women have to do it for 30 days, because men don't lose muscle at the same rate as women. They don't start losing muscle till about the age of 50. And they tend to lose it a bit slower because that's just how they're built over time. So the number one reason we have slower metabolisms is the loss of lean muscle. Go back to my previous slide in the beginning and how quick that muscle mass loss is after breast cancer treatment. And it is largely the number one reason that people have a difficult time with weight maintenance after a diagnosis of breast cancer. Also, inactivity or reduced activity. So I really think it's important for you guys to know that I think it's good to reach those exercise goals, but even if you exercise 1 hour a day, it's only 4% of your total day. So I really think that we need to look at our overall steps or activity during the day. One of the things I have a love-hate about the Apple Watch, which I've only had mine for about a year, I procrastinated on it forever. But one of the things I like is that the 50-minute mark of the hour, it gives me the little zip, and it reminds me to get up. And I think to myself, I've been sitting for an entire hour. A lot of the reasons we gain weight is just our overall inactivity. We definitely saw this increase during COVID, just because we couldn't do a lot of things, but we especially see it in the breast cancer world. So I want you to think about that in your overall day, is look at how much you move during the day and the amount of time that you spend moving or standing. Accelerated aging, going back to that slide that I presented very much in the beginning, is called sarcopenia. So we talked about osteoporosis and osteopenia just a moment ago with Tia. This is another reason that metabolism is just so much more difficult, but something we can do something about it, which makes me happy. I do think it's really important to realize that changes in nutrition, both quality and quantity, really will significantly impact a lot of our weight gain. You know, in the clinical oncology world, we tend to recommend that people eat 50% carbohydrates because that's the diet to prevent malnutrition. And what we're realizing is this sarcopenic obesity that we see in the cancer population, that means low muscle to body fat percentage, is actually a body composition that does not need 50% carbohydrates. Needs a little bit more balance. So thinking back to what Rachel talked about last week and the importance of fiber, which includes a lot of really good nutrients and other proteins, we need to have a little bit more balance in our nutrition. For this population, the number one thing that I see as a challenge is a lot of the medication side effects. So steroids cause muscle loss. So for those of you guys that went through chemo and you got steroids, or you had immunotherapy side effects and were on steroids, or whatever other reason you were on steroids, steroids cause muscle loss. That's just par for the course. Hormone blockers also cause muscle loss. People say to me, well, I can't lose weight, I'm on a hormone blocker. And the reason why is a lot of those hormone blockers contribute to loss of muscle, which is why it makes it harder to lose weight. But these are all the reasons why it's hard to lose weight, but you can lose weight. So what do? Build lean muscle. It's really important to know that muscle is active on your body and burns calories at rest. So 1 pound of muscle on your body burns 7 to 10 calories, okay? When you're looking at a pound of fat, I mean, look at the difference, guys. It's just a handful of calories. So for every pound of muscle that you have on your body, you burn somewhere between 7 and 10 calories per day. So the more muscle you have, the more your metabolism is working 24/7, okay? Also, muscle takes up 18% less space than fat. So even if you weigh the same, so I don't want you to get fixated on weight. If you weigh the same, but you're more muscular, you're more compact, you're 18% smaller with a higher engine and a higher metabolism, which is going to help you burn the body fat that you desire over time. So even when you're sitting here hanging out with me on Zoom, your metabolism is going and you'll burn more calories overall. So building lean muscle, resistance training exercises, we talked a lot about that. Protein intake. Protein is the only fuel for your muscles. So you need to have adequate protein intake, which is typically somewhere around 30% of your diet. And there's some different nuances on that. I would definitely talk to somebody on nutrition. It's also important that you have mobility and flexibility in those muscles because we don't want to have tight connective tissues. It doesn't help us grow muscle if our muscles don't move. So people say, well, how do I do this? I really find that you need to add intervals, a little bit of intensity and variety. If you do the same exercise day in and day out, you don't stimulate new muscle to grow. It doesn't send that signal to your brain. It also produces less dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins. So it's important to have a lot of these intervals. This, of course, is relative to the individual. If some of you found that chair sit to stand was intense, I think that's awesome because guess what? You built muscle today. That's going to help you in your overall metabolism for days to come. It's really important to find muscle fatigue. This is honestly something that I think a lot of us are afraid of. I want to tell you guys something. You're never going to get bulky. Sorry, you're never going to look like a bodybuilder. You're not going to be that size. So don't be afraid to push weights to create muscle fatigue, not joint pain, but muscle fatigue. And what that should feel like is that burning sensation. Those last couple reps, you're having a hard time kind of getting up off the chair. It's a little bit more of a push. That creates muscle fatigue. That muscle fatigue is what builds new muscle, which turns your metabolism on. So it's really important to think about from an exercise standpoint that you're building lean muscle mass. It's also really important, you guys, to realize, actually, I thought I had one more slide and I took it out. Going back to nutrition, because we had Rachel last week, be mindful about your caloric intake. It's beneficial to track what you eat. I do it all of the time because I think it is certainly really helpful to kind of know what you eat. If you go into an app like MyFitnessPal, don't use the presets. Work with somebody to help you understand how to balance out your macros. You're not just getting a caloric deprivation plan because if you eat too little, you slow down your muscle growth and that actually won't help you over time. So I will tell you, there's a few resources. You'll see this on your guide for some exercise resources that are going to be in the resource that we send out. But these are the other final resources that are in my list.